This past weekend, I went to YCS New Jersey, and it was super exciting. If you guys didn't see, if you weren't following the coverage, I actually was doing insanely well on day one. I did make day two, but I started out day one 5-0, which was incredible. I got an awesome feature match that you guys should definitely go check out. I'll put a link in the description. I made a ton of awesome plays in that match that I thought were really rewarded and showed how familiar I was with Altergeists. And I also, after I dropped from the tournament, even though I made day two, I did not win out to make top 32. Even though that happened and that was very disappointing, I was really satisfied with my deck list. I actually thought the main deck and side deck were awesome. I cited, it was the first event that I've been to in a while where I actually use every single card in my side deck. That usually doesn't happen. I usually just sort of throw side decks together, and this time I spent a ton of time and effort actually coming up with this list, and I'm really excited to share it with you. But also, not only did I do well, slightly better than average in the main tournament, I actually entered 2 regional flights the next day. On the first one, I made it to the finals and lost in the last round just because, man, I drew really bad in the first game, and then in the second game I got double evenly match, and that was really painful. And then I entered another regional, which was the last one of the day, and I made it to round 3, and that was like the only the second time I went into time during the whole event. And surely by now you've seen the video from yesterday where I talked about all the things that I felt about the new time rule. Didn't go so well, but that was only the second time that I went into time, and boy did it feel bad, because I was up like 8 cards to his 2 cards, and I was definitely in a winning position. There's only like a 2,000 life point difference, but as soon as time is called now, you just instantly, the game ends right there, and that was super disappointing. But overall, I love this deck. I think Altergeists are a fantastic rogue strategy, and I think that my build was nearly perfect. Even though I did not perform how I wanted to, I performed much better than I have in recent events, and I'm really proud of this list, so I want to share it with you guys before next weekend, which is when I go to the Garden City Regional, which will be the last regional before the WCQ happens. Still trying to get my invite, but I think I have a really good shot after how I performed at this YCS this past weekend. So anyway, let's jump into the profile. Real quickly, I want to mention 2 things that I just forgot to say when I recorded the face cam part of this video. First off, something that I forget to do until the end of like every single event video, I want to give a huge shout out to all the people, and oh man, there was a lot of you that came up to me throughout the weekend and had me sign cards or just talked to me, or I even signed like a Beyblade. That was insane. You guys really make doing this as a job so much better. It's just incredible. I don't really see myself as that influential of a person, but so many people came to me and specifically said that a video of mine, and a lot of times they could actually remember it, which was crazy to me, but they said that a video of mine helped them like get their first locals win, or their first regional invite, or the first regional top, and that is just amazing. I really do try to talk about things that I feel can help people go from casual to competitive, and to see it actually work is just so cool. I'm just eternally grateful that for at least a brief part of my life, I will have influence on some amount of people and help them become better Yu-Gi-Oh players. I also want to say that the craziest thing that I signed this weekend, if you were curious, I signed a super rare Minerva prize card that is worth about $700. That was insane. That guy he was super nice. We talked several times throughout the weekend. If you're watching this video, shout out to you for being the craziest guy. I've spent some money on memes, so I can understand where he's coming from. But anyway, besides that, I also want to say quickly that the reason that this deck in particular was so good this weekend, and the reason that I won so many games throughout the weekend, way better than I did at the Rosemont Regional, was because some cards in this deck, 2 of them got erratas, which were super relevant. So I'll talk about those when we get there. Anyway, though, let's jump right in. So we have 3 copies of Marionetter. Kind of obvious, I think. 3 copies of Multifaker as well. Once again, pretty obvious. 3 copies of the blue one. This is the best one. It's kind of unfair to say that because it's only good because Multifaker exists, but this is the one that I want to see every first turn of every single game going first or second. If you go first, you can summon it, grab Link Kribo, grab Multifaker. That's really good. If you go second, you can break boards and then grab Multifaker. This card is just super dumb, so definitely want to play that guy. I played 2 copies of the Compulse. Card's pretty good. It's really bad to draw, so we're just going to play 2 copies. I did miss a third a couple times when I banished both of them off of Desires. In general, the Desires doesn't really affect this deck too much because as long as you have access to 1 copy of each of your Altergeist cards, you're totally fine. Like, it doesn't really matter. I didn't play the yellow guy this time, but I don't know. Like, there's just not enough Altergeist cards like to play that are like actually good. Almost all of the games that I lost this weekend were to just not drawing a single monster. There's only like 12 cards you can draw when you go first. Like, it's not this guy, but it's these 9 cards and then the 3 spoofings. That's basically what you want to draw. The good news is all you have to do is draw any one of those 12 cards and you're set, but there were a couple games, the games where I lost mostly, where I didn't draw any of the monsters and just drew like hand traps and regular traps and no way to actually do damage to my opponent. That's kind of unavoidable though. Anyway, we played 3 Reaper in the main. This card's really good. It's super solid against Sky Strikers, and it's okay against like Spirals. A lot of times with this deck, your opponent can still just kill you because they just have Spiral Tough. Well, they can kill you if they're smart. If they summon Spiral Tough and just keep attacking, you don't really have a lot of outs to that. So that's kind of rough to get over. I was going to say it's kind of tough to get over, but I'm not going to be that punny today. Yeah, 3 Ash Blossom with the other hand trap. Card's stupid. I think it's the best hand trap. I like it a lot more than Droll because it actually like stops the search. It stops like the initial search. It is not as good as Droll when your opponent has like 1,000 cards in hand, like they have Engage and they have Terraform and they have Desires. And maybe in those cases Droll's a lot better, but in my playtesting I found Ash to be a lot more effective. It looked like a lot of the Altergeist players that I saw were not playing Droll as well. That's it for the monsters. There were 17 of them, I think. For the spells, we had 1 copy of Desires and 1 copy of Duality. Yeah, I think in the last regional I played 2 copies. Maybe I just played 1-1 again. No, I think I played just 1-1 at the regional. In the main event, I played 2 Duality, 1 Desires. I found myself opening the most awkward hand in the deck, which was Duality plus the blue Altergeist monster. In that case, you're in a really weird spot, because if you make Link Kribo and your opponent ashes you, well, now you can't use the Duality. And if you use the Duality, then you can't summon the blue guy and make Link Kribo to search Multifakers. So that was like the most awkward hand. That didn't happen too often, but it did happen often enough for me to cut the Duality to 1 copy when I was playing in the regional fights. And overall, after now playing it with 2 copies of this and 1 copy of this and also the 1-1, I think that I really like the 1-1 ratio as it's just, you see them when you want to see them. You don't see them every single opening, you don't see them every single game, but overall you see them enough to where they're still relevant. They're just kind of like Saki 1-ofs. We played 3 Spoofing. This card's ridiculous. I know some people are playing 2, but like, oh man, you just want to open that card. 3 copies of Protocol. It's good because you can just flip this card up with like nothing like else set up, and then you can send Multifaker from your hand. If you draw 2 of this card, you can send 1 for the other's effect. That's really good. It's kind of like a Void Feast, where Billy Break was always saying like, you want to play 3 of this card because if you draw multiples, you can send 1 for the other. And that's kind of the same thing with this. And one of the cards that got the errata, Altergeist Manifestation, oh my gosh, this errata is ridiculous. So if you don't know, basically the errata means that when this card is activated, it doesn't have to be on the field to resolve its special summon effect. So what that means is basically 2 things I did every single game, or at least every single match. You can activate this card and then either chain the Compulse to bounce it back to your hand, or chain Spoofing to shuffle it back in your deck. You'll still get the special summon, and man, that is so unfair. It's how the card was meant to be played, like in the OCG, so I'm glad they errated it, but yeah, that is just like that's such a dumb interaction, and I use that almost every single match. I think a lot of my wins were just due to recycling Manifestation over and over again. And so I keep hitting like my charging cord. So we have 3 copies of Anti-Spell for the Floodgates, 1 Imperial Order, 3 copies of Rivalry. I didn't play Torrential. I probably will going forward. These cards are all really good, I'm not gonna lie. The only time I drew Order this event, though, I had actually killed myself, so that kind of sucks. But at the last regional, Order was amazing. Yeah, Rivalry was really good. It's good against like all the decks right now. It's these cards and like the Reaper are really good against like the meta decks. They're pretty bad against trap-based decks, and they're really bad against like random rogue. Like my first loss of the weekend was to a Dinosaur player, because obviously none of these cards do anything to that deck, and also Reaper doesn't do anything into that deck. But overall, these cards were insane, and if you expect to play a lot of the meta decks, definitely play them. And yeah, I ended up going to 3 Infinite Impermanence. This card's really expensive. It's also insane in this deck. I think for like other decks, you can probably get away with Valor. But just for the reason that you can activate this going second and then summon Multi-Faker on your opponent's first turn, that is like actually the most unfair part about this deck. And if you can do that, you'll probably win the game pretty easily. It's just like way too much for your opponent to deal with. Like people like can play around negations and stuff on their first turn. That's what they're used to, but they're not used to like playing around a compulse effect. But yeah, this card's definitely worth the money if you're playing it in this deck specifically. And then I played Solemn Strikes and Judgment. In the main event, I played 2 copies of Strike, and then the second duality. In the regionals, I played 3 Strike. The reason being, a lot of my losses in the main event, well, I say a lot of my losses, I didn't get that many losses in the main event, but of the losses that I took in the main event to prevent me from topping, basically what happened is that I didn't have a way to kill their established board, and I think for that reason, a card like Strike is really good because it actually can sort of take care of your opponent's board. It's also really good against the Trickstar deck. I think, though, going forward, I need to play at least 2 Torrentials, definitely cutting a Judgment. This card's really powerful. However, it is, oh my gosh, is it bad against Trickstars. Like, they just kill you. You lose half your life points, and Trickstars, especially with Skyscraper, is like the most popular deck right now, so I definitely cannot play Judgment anymore. But it was a good card, like, overall. I did win a match where I Judgmented a Pot of Desires against Trickstars turn 1, paid 4,000 life points, and I still won that game, so that was pretty crazy. But the extra deck, we have 3 of the only card you ever make besides Link Kribo. These 4 cards, and really it's just like these 3, you don't even really make the third one of this guy. This is what you make, like, if you even make anything. I'd say I probably made this guy like once a match, maybe twice a match. This guy like every single game. Like, Link Kribo is stupid in this deck. Like, I know that I have some like European players that watch, and they like ask like, what can you replace Link Kribo with? That's pretty much not a replacement. I mean, there's like the Clara and Rusko card. That one's okay, but like nothing is as good as Link Kribo, because like it's good on your first turn. You can bring it out immediately with just the blue guy. That's really good, and then you can keep bringing it back every single turn. So that card's amazing. I did play some Nightmares. I never made any of these. I mean, like, you don't really make like any cards in your extra deck, but these ones are good to have, especially the Phoenix one. You like have to play if you're maining cherries, because every deck might not be playing the cherries targets that I'm using, even though I'm using 5 of them, and even though they're for the 5 or the 4 most popular decks or whatever. Even though all of that, you'll play rogue decks, and almost every deck's playing these cards. Well, at least Phoenix, so you can always reburst something. I played one of this card just in case you have Rivalry face up and you don't want to make Hextia for some reason. That's probably never going to happen, and it literally has never happened to me. One Borlo Dragon, the card's like good. I made it once, it didn't win me the game because that was the dinosaur guy, and I needed to like do damage to him, and he just kept summoning Giant Rex, and that really sucked because this card, like, it can steal the Giant Rex, and that's pretty good, but it couldn't actually like attack directly, so that kind of sucked. And then the cherries targets, so we have all sorts of stuff here. Both of the Skyscrapers, really, really, really important. I see people just playing the red one. That's really, really bad against the pure Skyscraper deck, because if they summon Ray, use cherries, they'll chain it to summon the red one, so you need to have the blue one to hit. The red one is better, yes, but you need to have the blue one for when they summon Ray. It's just way too good. And then the Spiral matchup is really good with this. The Isolde, obviously, is super important to Gokis. And just in case I faced Kelvin Tahan, I played ABC Dragonbuster, but probably should just play the Invoked Mechaba if you have that, but I don't. For the side deck, which, like I mentioned, this was like the first event where I played a side deck and I thought all the cards were amazing. I'm still going to cut like 2 of them that I'll talk about in a sec, but just in general, I thought my side deck was super great. I sided into all of these cards like throughout the entire tournament, and I felt like my deck was extremely strong, not only against the meta, but also the mirror matches like Altergeists and even other trap-based decks if I faced those as well. And for the most part, yeah, it did its job. So the craziest card, the MVP, Inspector Border. This card is stupid. If you want to beat Trickstars, summon Inspector Border. If you want to beat Altergeist, summon Inspector Border. Both those decks have very little outs to this thing, and you can usually kill them in like 3 turns when you summon this, because you just, next to it, you just summon Marionetter and then another Marionetter. You usually just use Spoofing to keep summoning the Marionetters, and then you can just kill them because it has so much attack. And yeah, this card's really stupid. It's like, I won so many games with that guy, it's ridiculous. That like way overperformed my expectations. I played 1 game of Sealworm. Whoops, not that card. get that in a second. I played one Gamma Seal, one Regeki for like breaking boards. These cards are like okay. These mainly just came out against random rogue decks when I couldn't play like Anti-Spell is not great going second, and like Reaper isn't good against like random rogues. Like you have to side into something, and these often came in for that reason. Never when you're going first though. The card that I accidentally showed there was Secret Village. This card super underperformed. I don't think it's that good. I think going forward I would play Thunder King for sure, especially with Trickstar Sky Strikers being like the most popular deck in Top Cut. Thunder King just like auto wins that matchup. Very much, it's just like your fourth and fifth copy of Inspector Border, which I think is super crucial. The reason this card isn't that good, the reason it underperformed, is because this card, unlike Anti-Spell, is super susceptible, like ridiculously. Like if your opponent evenly matches you when you have this card, like you just lose. Like it's so sad because like with this card, if they evenly match you, you basically like already lost 2 cards. Because if you can't keep this on the field because now you don't have a spellcaster, and like you keep the spellcaster on the field, now you don't have a floodgate. It's way better to have Rivalry, way better to have Anti-Spell because they're actual floodgates that you can just keep up with it evenly. So that card's like okay, I guess, but the only time I sided that card like and actually drew it, I just got evenly matched and it really sucked. Speaking of, yeah, I finally broke down and bought evenly matches. The reason I hadn't bought this card yet is because up until right now, well, last weekend, this card wasn't good against the best deck ever. It was really not that great against Spirals. It was really not that great against Pendulums. Like, oh my gosh, it was bad against Pendulums because they just set up so many negates. You would just like waste your battle phase. This wouldn't even go through. That was terrible. But right now, this card is really stupid against Trickstars and Sky Strikers. So I played 3 copies, and yeah, this card won me a whole bunch of games. The ridiculous part about this card, just like Infinite and Permanence, is that you can do this on your like second turn, like your first turn, with the second turn of the game. You do it, take out a bunch of their cards because Trickstars and Sky Strikers and the combination hybrid deck, they just set all of their stuff, and you do this. They go down to 1 card, and then you activate Multi-Faker in your hand, and you just kill them. And it's really good. And because I don't want to get evenly matched or red rebooted, I played a Wiretap. I never wiretapped a red reboot. I did get red rebooted twice, and I actually won both those games. In both scenarios, they weren't able to kill me, mostly due to having a hand trap in hand that I could actually interact with them. But if you red reboot your opponent and you don't kill them, you're probably going to lose the game, especially against Altergeists, because they can just do so much with the traps. And that let me like search, like in most of those cases, I just searched Imperial Order, and that's just like super dumb. Anyway, though, this card's really good against evenly matched and red reboot, so you side it when you go first against the decks that are going to side those cards against you, which is like all of the big decks out there, like Skystrikers and Trickstars. All those decks are going to be siding those cards against you. But also, when you play the mirror match, you can side this in, and it's really powerful, so I like this card a lot. This card was super, super good for me this weekend. And lastly, I sided Heavy Stormduster. Once again, it super overperformed. I thought this card was fantastic. It basically was the key to all of these trap-based mirrors. So like the Heavy Stormdusters, the Wiretaps, and then the Inspector Borders. These would win like so many matchups, especially when you like go first against all those other trap-based decks. Like a lot of people I saw were only siding like 4 to 5 cards for those like mirror matches between trap decks. I was siding at least 8, and then when you went second, you could side in another 3, and yeah, I felt like I had a really good matchup against those decks. Like, my least favorite part about Yu-Gi-Oh! Is mirror matches, because I just never know how to play them, but I felt like for this event specifically, and going forward with this deck, I think I have like enough cards in here that are actually good. I felt super confident, not in game 1 of those matches, because I had so many like floodgates that were terrible in the mirror, but games 2 and 3, I felt like these cards are super powerful. Like, if you're playing the Altergeist mirror and your opponent doesn't play Inspector Border, you will just auto-win every single game 2 and 3. I think most people know about the card by now, but if they don't, if you're playing like locals or something, or even a regional qualifier where your opponent doesn't know this card exists, for the mirror match, you will win every single match with this card, so it's pretty incredible. Anyway, though, that is going to wrap up my super long deck profile. So sorry that this took so long. Basically, I think this deck is fantastic. The only thing that I'm really trying to add is Thunder King to the side deck and Trental to the main deck. Other than that, though, I thought this thing ran perfectly. Once again, check out my feature match. The link will be in the description. It was super cool. If you want to like know how Altergeists play when like they're at their best, definitely look at that, because I pretty much use like all the crazy combos that the deck has. Thank you so much for watching, though, and I will see you all at the Garden City Regional Qualifier next weekend if you're going to that. Otherwise, I will be going to the WCQ, regardless of if I get my invite or not. We'll have to see. But I will see you guys later. Goodbye.